Hello, puppies and kittens. Welcome to another of our Bible lessons for Blasphemers Bible. The usual crew assembled. Good morning, Lorence. Morning, Lilith, and morning, Tomer, who is now visible.
Yeah.
I'm getting
Hello.
some echo, guys.
I'm
Oh
not.
no, I'm not hearing any.
Yeah.
Perhaps the chat would be kind enough to tell us if they're hearing any echo.
Oh no, that was on me because I was
Okay.
actually on the stream, and that was on
Oh,
me. That's my
okay, that
bad.
makes sense.
That is
yes,
my bad
Hmm.
because it doesn't let you mute beforehand.
All right,
We-
so
We shall deduct 2 YouTube points from you, Lorence. By the way, but there's
That's okay. That's okay.
There's a trick.
I'll be in the negatives. That's fine.
there's a trick though. Open another stream, mute that one, and then refresh this one. Then it's going to be muted the moment the stream starts. Just a tip.
Perhaps someday we'll have an episode where we'll set this up like a game show, and every time one of us gets a really good hit in, we get points. Anytime someone brings up a good point, good bit of scholarship, they get points. Anytime anyone, insults God in an especially imaginative way, they get points.
All right.
I feel like we'd just be chasing points the whole time.
Aren't we anyway?
I mean, yeah, but I don't know. It seems so bad.
So we took a break, right? Did we take a break?
Yes.
We did, yes.
Previously, we skipped the show because of your granddaughter's wedding. So
Yep.
Congratulations, Aaron.
Well, my daughter's wedding.
Your daughter's wedding.
Yeah.
You got confused with the beautiful picture of his granddaughter, who is still very young and is only going to marry her stuffies.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's just that you mentioned a lot your daughter's granddaughter. So.
Okay.
No.
Yeah. That was a fun event. But anyway, where was I going with that? Oh yeah. Lorence, what have you been doing since then? Projects, whatever.
Oh yeah. So mostly I've just been concentrating on school, but I decided to like expand a little bit, and I think I might do a video on the murder of Herodes, and there yeah, right. So here it's an ancient Greek true crime case, an unsolved mystery from ancient Greece. So kind of want to delve into that. I think it'd be fun, just because I can do my own translation if I need to.
Nice.
Yeah, I think it'd be fun.
Talk about
That
a
or
cold
I'll do a
case.
council. And I did pick up a couple books that I'm excited to get into. Picked up Van Setter's Prologue to History. This is his part 1 in a 2-part series. The other part is The Life of Moses, which I have read. I've used it before. It's pretty good. And then the second one is about the Joseph story. So I'm going to read this book before we get to the Joseph story. Yeah, the Joseph story, but yeah, I do. Between Egypt and Israel. Yeah.
Right. I've just been working on a 3-part series answering Genesis apologetics when they talk about did Moses write the Pentateuch. And the first part 1 was just my own commentary on that, but the part 2 that came out yesterday was me interviewing Dr. Josh Bowen and Dr. Kip Davis
Very nice.
for like an hour and a half, talking about how there was no damn Moses. And then the third part of that, which will be coming out later this afternoon, is snippets of interviews from with me and Robert Price, with D.M. Murdoch, with Francesco Stavrokopoulou, and Bart Ehrman, all of whom saying there was no damn Moses.
It's true. It's I remember watching a very interesting. It was a debate about who Jesus was, and there was a Jew, a Christian, a Muslim, and Robert Price, who was the mythicist, obviously. And then
Okay, I just want to understand. I got the pretext here: a Jew, a Christian, a Muslim, and Robert Price walk into a bar. Go ahead.
And well, they're all discussing who Jesus was, and the Jewish expert, whose name I wish I could recall, said, it may seem strange that I, as a rabbi, am here advocating the historicity of Jesus as being true and not the historicity of Moses. You're just saying that, no, Jesus is real, but Moses, no. But that is what the scholarship seems to say. And from his perspective, yeah, I was like, that is interesting. And it was part of my becoming aware that the historicity of Moses was not a thing amongst educated people of any stripe. So it was part of my journey there, going, wow, okay, even rabbis are all right. Well,
yeah, I get much the same thing. The scholarship just does not.
Oh no.
Yeah, it's basically just the national hero.
Oh,
Like
but
King Arthur.
He's like King Arthur. Yeah, exactly.
Before we
Comer.
go into this chapter, I just want to say that I'm very happy to see that people gradually like my content, that people enjoy listening to my the commentary that I give. Previously, I've got just one negative comment, and this is an improvement, and I'm very happy to see this. But yeah, I'm trying my best, and I appreciate all of you.
Thank you very much, sir. Who wants to begin the reading?
I'm fine reading if you don't mind, as long as I can still have a sip of my pumpkin spice latte, because 'tis this season. We are starting in Genesis 23, and I am reading from the NIV.
I suggest you should do from, I think, 1
Well, I'm
to
visiting
5.
my parents, so I don't have the full length of all my Bibles and my Strong's Exhaustive Concordance with me. We'll just have to go with what I have.
So I suggest you should do 1:5 or 1:10, whatever you want to.
Well,
Just
looking behind you, your parents certainly have a vast library, it seems.
I know, it's almost exactly like the one I have at home. It's magical.
No, this is not a library. I have a library right there, and it's my library. I'm not kidding you. It's all the books that I.
Coincidentally,
Yeah,
look
all
at
the books that I have.
Lalandra's library. It's even bigger.
Lalandra has an exquisite library.
Yeah.
I think her background isn't that Trinity
virtual,
College?
It's virtual, so.
As long as it's not Trinity Western. They would never have that many books.
I love that library, but in Trinity College in Ireland. There's a beautiful library there.
It sounds magical.
Yeah, and it looks a lot like what she's got in her background. All right, Lilith, go ahead and begin the reading, please.
Of course. Now Sarah lived to be 127 years old.
And she was still hot.
Yeah, she was still hot. They were working working the life to the day she died. She died at Kiriath Arba. Sorry, that is Hebron.
Kiriath Arba.
Kiriath Arba. That is Hebron, in the land of Canaan. And Abraham went to mourn for Sarah and weep over her. Then Abraham rose from beside his dead wife and spoke to the Hittites. He said, I am an alien and a stranger among you. Sell me some property for the burial site here so that I may bury my dead. The Hittites replied to Abraham, Sir, listen to us. You are a mighty prince among us. Bury your dead in the choicest of our tombs. None of us will refuse you his term for burying your dead. His tomb, rather. Then Abraham rose and bowed down before the people of the land, the Hittites. He said to them, If you are willing to let me bury my dead, then listen to me and intercede with Ephron, son of Zohar, on my behalf, so that he will sell me the cave of Machpelah, which belongs to him and is at the end of his field. Ask him to sell it to me for the full price as a burial site among you.
Okay, I think we should stop here. So, if anybody else has commentary, or I should start.
Well, my comment is probably going to come at the end of this exchange because it has to do with sort of customs of barter and courtesy and such. So you can tell us the actual name of the cave, if you'd like.
Yeah. So first off, let's go to the second verse where he describes how Sarah died. So some Midrashic stories have tried to connect between her death and the binding of Isaac, again with the angel Samael. For example,
I find that justified.
For example, in Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer 32, it reads, When Abraham returned from Mount Moriah in peace, the anger of Samael was kindled, for he saw that the desire of his heart to frustrate the offering of our father Abraham had not been realized. What did he do? He went and said to Sarah, "Have you not heard what has happened in the world?" She said to him, "No." He said to her, "Your old husband has taken your son Isaac and slain him and offered him up as a burnt offering upon the altar." Then she began to weep and to cry aloud, and her soul fled, and she died.
Yep, Samael spilling the tea. Hey,
Oh,
you hear what he did?
Gossip.
Yeah. So about Kiryat Arba. So the meaning could be town of the four. Kiryat is similar to a town, and Arba is the Hebrew word for four, which can be referred to the four couples that are buried in there. It's the Hebrew name for the cave of the patriarchs. The cave of the Machpelah, as we will go to there. The four
So Machpelah would
couples,
have been a later change of the name once Abraham and the patriarchs are all buried there. Then it's the cave of the patriarchs.
It could be. So the four couples, according to tradition, are Abraham and Sarah, Isaac and Rebekah, Jacob and Leah, and Adam and Eve. Also, it could also mean town of Arba, named after the giant Arba, who is described in Joshua 14:15, which reads, "Hebron used to be called Kiriath Arba after Arba, who was the greatest man among the Anakites, or the giants."
Is this the same cave that has that abnormally large slab on it that they say was a burial slab for someone, so that they use as a justification for there being giants?
Different one, I think.
No, I don't
might
think
be.
so.
There's a couple.
And finally, for this verse, I wanted to go into to weep over her. So interesting, in the Bible, there are several letters which appear either very large or small, and this is an example of one instance where there is a small letter than the rest. So Peter, can you show the picture, please? So this is the Hebrew word that appears in the Bible for and to weep over her. And notice that in the center there is the letter Kaf, which is much slightly smaller than the rest of the letters. So the commentator Baal HaTurim writes that this small Kaf signifies that Abraham cried, but not too much because she was elderly, and also because, according to him, she caused her own death when she passed judgment for her deeds onto another, and therefore was punished first. And one does not eulogize someone who dies by suicide.
Oh, for goodness sake.
Yeah.
That is quite the stretch.
That is, yeah, that you're taking rather a lot. Because I mean, not you, obviously, the commentator. That is definitely a stretch. I mean, I understand those cases, formal mourning that you would go into, that, talk about sackcloth and ashes. You talk about some people would hire mourners to wail at the time. And granted, 127, however, ridiculous that number might be in reality, anyone would regard that as a very thoroughly lived life.
I will say that he bases this on something that Chazal said, which appears in Rosh Hashanah 16b. So, so there.
Well, I would hope it would be more than just the size of the letter, but
but you see that there are commentators who will give special meanings when you have big letters or small letters. For example, one famous example is where in the Deuteronomy, where you have the "Hear, O Lord," and there are two letters here which are quite enlarged, and they form the Hebrew word "ed," which translates to witness. So that's one interpretation, but we won't go on this any further.
Okay, thank you. Then I think we're
so. Another
we
thing.
We still have the picture up, Peter.
Yeah, Peter.
We're good. Thanks. There we are.
Okay, so about verse 6, where it says, "You are a mighty prince." More accurately will be, "You are a prince of God." The verse, the part reads "Nasi Elohim," and Nasi could translate to prince, or maybe a higher ruler. In Hebrew, modern Hebrew at least, it translates to president, but I don't think a president has. There was a president in ancient times.
No, that would not be quite the right term.
Yeah. Or it could be in a Targum Onkelos, it also translates as you are respected before God. So
Okay, I could see that more.
and the final
altar does translate it as a prince of God.
Yeah. So the final my final commentary for this part is about the cave of Machpelah. So the Hebrew name, this is the Hebrew name for the cave of the patriarchs, and the name Machpelah has the root kefel, which means to double or multiple. Rashi comments that it was called so because, quote, it had a lower and an upper cavern. Another explanation of why it was so called is because it was doubled on account of the couples who are buried there. However, several commentators like Nachmanides, Rashbam, and David Kimchi comment that this is just the name of the field. And Nachmanides adds that there is no need to find meaning behind the names of those places.
Well, and you can see all through the Pentateuch that it was written much later than any of the events it describes, and certainly much later than Moses, by the constant, this is the old name, this is the new name, this is the old name, this is the new name. As we pointed out with the one that, the one where they flee to Dan, and this area was not renamed Dan until, long after Moses. So you can see that, and they have later names. Sometimes they make the distinction, Kiryat Arba, that is Hebron. It'll be referred to as Hebron later. That's the same region. And sometimes they just use the new name and completely forget to pretend that they knew what the original was.
They forget to pretend.
Well, you're cosplaying an ancient history. Sometimes you leave things out. There's plot holes. Just don't look at the man behind the curtain.
I think maybe there is some places that are named after historical events, but they might have a retrofitted name. Oh, not historical, but biblical events, And
biblical, yeah.
Yeah. Or like or they don't have any significance, like Tomer was saying. Wasn't there a place in the last chapter, or there are a couple of chapters, Jehovah Jireh, God will provide.
Yeah, the Lord will provide.
Where he sacrificed Isaac. I don't know if that place actually exists, though.
There is
sometimes
it's Mount. It's according to this chapter, it's Mount Moriah, and Mount Moriah is either Jerusalem, or if you go with the Samaritans, Mount Gerizim. But
sometimes I admit I wonder if some of the stories were not invented to give a reason for the names of places. Not necessarily these ones. I'm sure the story of, the patriarchs would have come first in that sense. But there's a couple times where I look and go, okay, this is kind of a chicken and the egg. Which came first, the story or the name? And, sometimes you just wonder if they're like, like the baptism place of Jesus, where it was in one location and then they had to clear that location out that became the traditional location because of, bombs and stuff. And so they just went upriver and said, this is the traditional location. And, they're still making bank on tourism. So what do they care?
There's a Via Dolorosa in Israel where that Christians visit and it's the way of the cross, it's supposed to be the way that Jesus followed to Calvary, the hill. And like Tomer was showing us, there was, like what you're saying, there was that pillar that's supposed to be Lot's wife. And maybe that story just came out to describe this formation later,
And after that, people are going to make tourism buck if they can't bank on, especially having a sacred site or whatever. Oh, you have to leave offerings and stay in the region or get some blessing, whatever. It's Lord's all over again.
I'm going to read some chats that have come up here. So Matt White says, definition of irony, a herpetologist debunking a book with a talking snake in it. And then Kelly Servo says, sorry, this is off topic. Lalandra, loved your baby snakes video the other day. And then, let's see, Anton Gomez, good to see him again. Let's see, for 60 Mexican pesos, says, has anyone heard about the Hayflick limit? If so, can humans live that long despite such cell limit? I have not heard of the Hayflick limit. I don't, at least not that name. Anybody?
No, I have not heard, but Wikipedia says that. I opened the Hebrew Wikipedia. It is the number of times a normal somatic differentiated human cell population will divide before cell division stops.
Okay.
This is her right here. This is Lilith from the video.
There's Lilith. I really wanted to see her. Hello, baby.
See, she
That's
has
it.
a marking on her head.
She's so beautiful.
She is. She's an
Who's my
extreme
beautiful
person.
little queen?
That's a cute one.
Yeah, she is a queen.
She is a queen.
I have a feeling we suddenly went off topic.
I don't care. She's my baby.
Yeah, her maid is Lucifer.
I love it.
The queen of hell too. Lilith had many mates though in folklore. Samael being one of them.
You know, I think monogamy becomes more of a problem when you're immortal.
Yeah. Well, God castrated Samael because he was making too many demons with Lilith, and so Asmodeus had to step up to be her mate.
You got to do what you got to do.
Yep.
So Kicker White Lion for 50 Czech kroner says the tone of this book is really weird given that it's a prequel to the life of Brian. I hope there are at least some songs like that at the end of the film.
Well,
there are some songs, but they're not very good.
I mean, when you read it, well, when you read it in Hebrew, I have to admit, when you read the things in Hebrew, then I think that some of them are very, very pretty.
Do they rhyme?
Yes, they rhyme. But
I'm sure the Psalms sound much better in Hebrew.
Yes.
Partly for linguistic purposes and partly because if I can't understand the words, I don't have to think about dashing babies against rocks.
Sometimes some structures of the verse sound kind of like a song, like they are meant to be said as a song, but actually it's going to be in the next chapter, but we'll get to that.
Since we're not there yet, but Songs of Solomon is quite interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
I think I love that sex book is pretty good.
You gotta love. The even
porn.
funnier thing is the Christians who can't stand the idea that there's sex in the Bible, and so it's an analogy for the love between Christ and the church, which makes all the talking about breasts just a little weird.
All right, are you still reading?
Yes, of course. So now, let's go back to 10. Ephron the Hittite was sitting among his people, and he replied to Abraham in the hearing of all the Hittites who had come to the gate of the city. No, my lord, he says, listen to me. I give you the field, and I give you the cave that is in it. I give it all to you in the presence of my people. Bury your dead. Again, Abraham bowed down before the people of the land, and he said to Ephron in their hearing, listen to me, if you will. I will pay the price of the field. Accept it from me so that I can bury my dead there. Ephron answered Abraham, listen to me, my lord. The land is worth 400 shekels of silver, but what is that between me and you? Bury your dead. Abraham agreed to Ephron's terms and weighed out for him the price that he had named in the hearing of the Hittites, 400 shekels of silver, according to the weight current among the merchants.
I can't help reading this with some level of sarcasm.
I was going to say pastors do occasionally give some useful commentary, and one of them pointed out that in certain cultures, oh no, take it, it's yours. Oh no, I couldn't. Oh no, the sort of, as the Chinese do with any physical gift, you have to deny it. There's this whole underlying unspoken manner in which you carry on these things. So he couldn't just ask for 400 shekels of silver. He had to say, no, take it. No, I couldn't. I'll pay you. Oh, it's worth this much, but no, please just take it. And that's sort of the etiquette associated with such a thing. Not that he was ever actually going to give him the land.
Okay, because the way I got it, it's worth 400 shekels, but what is what's that?
That's amazing.
He's still asking for the 400 shekels.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
This is just in the etiquette of the day. The oh no, I couldn't. Oh no, I couldn't. Back and forth, and the price is named and agreed in that. It just you have to dress it up in whatever.
Going back to the previous comment about this being a prequel for the life of Brian, how much do you want? 10 shekels. Okay, fine. No, you're supposed to haggle for it.
10 for this, you must be mad. I'll give you 6. Yeah.
Okay, continue, please.
Okay. So Ephron's field in Machpelah, near Mamre, both the field and the cave in it, and all the trees within the borders of the field, was deeded to Abraham as his property in the presence of all the Hittites who had come to the gate of the city. Afterwards, Abraham buried his wife Sarah in the cave in the field of Machpelah near Mamre, which is at Hebron, in the land of Canaan. So the field and the cave in it were deeded to Abraham by the Hittites as a burial site.
Someone in the chat, Nephilim Slade, says, what is the difference between a crackhead and someone who is filled with the Holy Spirit? At least the crackhead would know and admit they have a problem.
They might.
Unfortunately, there's another difference too, in that one of them is socially accepted and the other is not. But there aren't many differences between religion and chemical addiction. They have a lot of similarities, but one of their differences is that one is socially accepted and promoted.
Yeah, when we get closer to Christianity, I have a lot to say on that topic, particularly evangelicalism, which is addicted to, it's an addiction to the process and the experience of conversion, which, especially in their doing of things, is often a great emotional height. They build up music and chanting, and they get you into this great state. And a lot of their songs are left over from 1920s and Prohibition era and stuff. And so you end up with songs and tactics that were taken into the slums where people were really down on their luck and felt terrible about themselves. And instead you sing to a bunch of 10-year-olds about how vile and repulsive they are and how only God can love them, and he does it so generously. And it's very, very warped and demented. But there's also the culture of constantly going back to conversion and reconversion, which is partly why they get so many high numbers on altar calls, because it can be your conversion, or you can repent for backsliding in some way. So you can just keep going back to the beginning and having this peak experience and sort of live there for years, addicted to the emotional high.
Tomer, I'm sorry if I missed this. Does the cave where they bury her, does it have an actual place today?
Yeah, it's located. Yeah, there is a place called Cave of the Patriarchs, which is located near Hebron. I haven't been there, and I don't want to be there, because it's. I don't really know how it goes. I've read that it basically Jews and Muslims switch places, and I think it's in control of Israel. I don't know. I really don't know, but
it's disputed. This land is disputed.
Yeah, I guess.
I heard at one point that there were 2 separate entrances for Jews and Muslims.
Yeah,
and that there had been some sectarian violence there before, which is very disturbing.
Yeah, unfortunately, in 1997, there was a massacre by a extremist Jew who killed around, I think, 29 Palestinians, and because of this, the whole place is I think it's not barricaded. I mean, it's divided between Jews and Muslims. I don't really know about this, and I'm not one to comment.
You knew more than I did. It's like they attach the significance that this was the burial place of my ancestors. This place is always mine now and forever, and then somebody disputes it. I was reading about at one time about the Dome of the Rock, which is under I think Islamic temple now, and at one time that there was a claim that was the Well of Souls from the Jerusalem temple.
It's located near it. It's like it's a separate area.
And the
But-
way that they claim this rock is theirs, this huge, beautiful black rock, is that they claim that before Muhammad ascended into heaven, he touched down at that place, the Dome of the Rock first.
Isn't it? That's where you can still see the footprint of Baruch when he kicked off and flew Muhammad to the moon.
I'm not sure, but like this is how they everybody gets mad that this is mine. No, it's mine.
Yeah.
Muhammad was here, you know.
Well, and some people say that they're just trying to keep the Jews from having their temple back, and then they're saying no, it's so sacred to us because of this.
I got another comment. This one from Coffee Mom for $1.99. This is in reference to our previous comment about being filled with the Holy Spirit being like a chemical addiction. She says, this is called chasing the dragon, aka addiction. And what makes that ironic is that it's from Coffee Mom.
Hey, don't you knock my coffee addiction.
Isn't that
coffee is my one true love.
Pumpkin spice, it doesn't count.
Isn't that a reference to South Park? I think it is. They are chasing the dragon.
Oh no, that's been a term for a long time.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know my English, unfortunately.
But
I'm sure they use it in South Park, but
yeah. Shall we continue to the next chapter?
Yes, please. I
So,
like how we're making progress. We got all the way through this one, and it was only a half hour.
Yeah, because now
it was a very short chapter.
Yeah, there's not really much to it, honestly.
Yeah,
you just have this this property claim, and then we talked a little bit about its actual location. So there wasn't really like much to it. It is it's important for like, as was mentioned, future land claims. And
it could have been much shorter. I mean, it could have been, Sarah died. She was really old. Okay, we move on.
It could have.
Well,
been,
yes, but
then
like he said, land claims. You need to have a record of how this was, lawfully purchased and is the rightful due property of Abraham and his descendants. Yada yada yada.
I'm not really that interested in the real estate escrow. I'm just.
I think it's interesting how Tomer pointed out, like, somebody's like, hey, look at that little K in there. He mourned, but he didn't really mourn. I mean, it's like, really? How much money did he make off this old, beautiful woman? Twice. So many servants and whatever for this people buy this woman, and then God curses them. Oh, no, this is your wife, and give them back. That's like, so, yeah, like she was worth a lot to him, but money-wise, at least.
Yeah. Well, and maybe he mourned that his financial scheme could no longer go on, and he. I'm really very glad Abraham had no daughters. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
This
is not my daughter.
Nope.
I'll sell her to you.
So, on this this next chapter, will it still be Lilith or will it be Lilandra reading?
I'll read if you don't want to, Lilith.
Please go ahead. I'd love to hear you read.
Before you read it, just to point out, this is the longest chapter in Genesis. This is 67 chapters long. So I decide
67 chapters long. Hell yeah, let's go.
In a book.
67 verses long. I apologize. But I suggest we should do 10 verse each. 10. Okay?
Okay, let's do 10. All right. The Book of Genesis, chapter 24. Abraham makes his servants swear. Oh, I'm sorry, that's the subtitle. I'm not going to read that. And Abraham was old and well stricken in age, and the Lord had blessed Abraham in all things. And Abraham said unto his eldest servant of his house, that ruled over all that he had, put, I pray thee, thy hand under my thigh. What the hell? But
we'll go into this.
Fill me up.
Finish this part and then we go.
Okay. And I will make thee swear by the Lord, the God of heaven, and the God of the earth, that thou shalt not take a wife unto my son of the daughters of the Canaanites, among whom I dwell. But thou shalt go unto my country and to my kindred, and take a wife unto my son Isaac. And the servant said unto him, Peradventure the woman will not be willing to follow me unto this land. Must I needs bring thy son again unto the land from whence thou camest? And Abraham said unto him, Beware thou that bring not my son thither again. The Lord God of heaven, which took me from my father's house and from the land of my kindred, which spake unto me, and that sware unto me, saying, Unto thy seed I will give this land. He shall send his angel before thee, and thou shalt take a wife unto my son from thence. And if the woman will not be willing to follow thee, then thou shalt be clear from this my oath. Only bring not my son thither again. And the servant put his hand under the thigh of Abraham, his master, and sware to him concerning that matter. Okay,
so we'll stop here.
Stop here. Okay.
Yeah.
So you've asked about the put your hand under my thigh. First off, about this senior servant. So according to tradition, and also based on the Babylonian Talmud in Yoma 28b, Rashi, and Aramaic translations, this is Eliezer of Damascus. And yes, I think it's quite not obvious, but it hints to it.
Yes, and Eliezer is mentioned earlier as the one who Abraham thought would inherit all of his property before he had any sons.
Yeah. So about the put your hand under my thigh. So according to Chazal in Talmud, Shavuot 83, not 83, Shavuot 38b, whoever takes an oath must take in his hand some sacred object like a Torah or tefillin. So Rashi comments based on this that he basically takes an oath on his circumcision. He writes, because circumcision...
So it was not his thigh.
Hold on. I haven't finished.
You say you got to take a sacred object.
Oh,
hold my thigh.
Instead of hold my beer, it's hold my thigh.
Okay.
And by that
I think honestly, I think Abraham has is bragging a little bit because I've seen a few of those and none of them was the size of a thigh.
So he writes, because circumcision was the first commandment given to Abraham and came to him through much pain, it was dear to him, and so he selected this as an object upon which to take the oath. However, Ibn Ezra rejects this interpretation because if it was the case, then Abraham should have made him swear by the covenant of circumcision and not by God. Instead, he writes that it was customary in those days for a person to place his hand under the thigh of his master, and its meaning is, if you are subject to my authority, place your hand under my thigh. The Lord then set on his servant's hand. By doing so, the servant, as it were, said to the master, my hand is under your authority to do your will.
Yeah, so this was a common thing in a few ancient societies, actually.
Yeah, he comments that, I'm sorry if I'm interrupting you, but he also comments that this custom is still followed in India. I don't know if it's still today, but maybe in its times.
Yeah, I feel like it could be related to like a procreation kind of thing, especially since we're talking about like, hey, could you get my son to not one of the daughters of Canaan? Like it might be related to that, but I'm not sure how popular of an opinion that is.
So it's basically swear to me by my dick that you will get my son a proper wife to carry on my line.
Essentially, yeah. Now this isn't as
if you go with Russian interpretation, then yeah.
Yeah, this isn't as overtly nationalistic as we will see in Ezra and Nehemiah, but it's certainly getting there.
Yeah. So about the daughters of the Canaanites, so I've read comments from David Kinchi and Bachya Ben Asher who comment that he orders this because the Canaanites were a cursed tribe. I don't know how they are cursed, but
why is he living among them and not in his land that God gave him then?
Oh, because God gave him their land, but they aren't wicked enough that God feels justified slaughtering them all. So he's going to let them like grow for a couple more generations and then murder them all.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. Or at least he's not gonna do it himself. He's gonna have someone else do it.
So Abraham's like, this land is your land. This land is my land.
No, it's really my land.
Is this another one of those Protestant songs?
No, it's like an American song, a folk song.
Yeah.
makes more sense.
And you know, Americans took the land from natives, so
yeah.
But you know, all very
this land was made for you and me, but not so much you as me.
Yeah. This land was made for you and me, but mostly me.
You can live here, I guess, but like we'll have some places for you. Real bad stuff.
Yeah, fun times.
All right, who's reading?
Did you want me to read or continue to read or?
Go ahead.
Okay, you're hesitant. I'll take over.
No. Okay, go ahead.
What verse are we on?
10.
10. All right. So when the servant left, taking with him 10 of his master's camels loaded with all kinds of good things from his master, which sounds a little bit Santa Clausy, he set out for Aram Naharaim. Okay, Tomer, fix that.
Aram Naharaim.
Aram Naharaim.
Aram Naharam?
Aram Aram Naharaim.
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 Yes.
Very good. Very good.
All right. And made his way to the town of Nahor. He had the camels kneel down near the well outside the town. It was toward evening, the time the women go out to draw water. Then he prayed, Lord, God of my master Abraham, make me successful today and show kindness to my master Abraham. See, I am standing beside the spring, and the daughters of the townspeople are coming out to draw water. May it be that when I say to a young woman, please let down your jar that I may have a drink, and she says, drink, and I'll water your camels too, let her be this one you have chosen for your servant Isaac. By this I will know that you have shown kindness to my master. Is this a pickup line he's working on here?
No.
This is a standard fairy tale element where the chosen princess to marry the chosen prince must complete a task that shows her virtue. Because camels who have been traveling a long time in the desert drink a lot. Pouring a glass for an old man compared to watering 10 camels, these are not comparable. So it's like when Cupid's wife had to, sort the grains into different piles. You basically do an impossible task, but if she volunteers, not impossible, but difficult. And if she volunteers to do this, then it's her showing very difficult and exorbitant hospitality to him, a stranger. And then this is the sign.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and so I do want to point out the thing about camels.
Yeah.
So the why it's so important here is because
they weren't domesticated at the time.
Yeah, exactly. They weren't domesticated at the time. So I'll just read the section off from Alter. So yeah, archaeological and extra-biblical literary evidence indicates that camels were not adopted as beasts of burden until several centuries after the patriarchal period, and so their introduction in the story would have to be anachronistic. What is puzzling is that the narrative reflects careful attention to other details of historical authenticity. Horses, which also were domesticated centuries later, are scrupulously excluded from the patriarchal tales, and when Abraham buys a gravesite, he deals in weights of silver, not in coins, as in the later Israelite period. The details of betrothal negotiation, with the brother acting as principal agent for the family, the bestowal of a dowry on the bride, and the betrothal gifts on the family are equally accurate for the middle of the second millennium BCE. Perhaps the camels are an inadvertent anachronism because they had become so deeply associated in the minds of later writers and audiences with desert travel. There remains a possibility that camels may have already had some restricted use in the earlier period for long desert journeys, even though they were not yet generally employed. In any case, the camels here are more than a prop for their needs, and the treatment are turned into the pivot of the plot. So, so while they are important to the story because they're what needs water, the issue of domesticated camels cannot be exactly overlooked. Now, there has been some scholarship that dates the domestication of camels a little bit earlier, but you still don't get far enough to the patriarchal period.
Fair
Okay.
enough. And that's, I mean, like I said, it's a bit of a fairy tale element. Although, as it seems that whoever wrote this did do some research to try and make it seem authentic, but didn't. They made a mistake with regard to the camels, at any rate. And it's possible that this was something of a tale that was told around of this. She was so generous, she watered the camels too, kind of a thing. You could see it becoming a part of oral history and maybe affecting the story later. I'm completely hypothesizing there. I obviously you can't prove that.
I know that I've read a fairy tale or fable of some kind that has, where you loaded with all kinds of good things.
Yeah.
That's there's a number of legends that have that kind of element in it.
Oh yeah.
So anyway, yes.
Yeah, I wanted to comment on just verse 10 for this part. So the all kinds of good things. So Rashi comments that Abraham wrote a deed of gift of all his possessions in favor of Isaac, so that they would be eager to send him to their daughter. However, Nachmanides writes that these are all the good and excellent among the fruits and precious things in Damascus or his master's house.
Okay.
So, and about Aram Naharaim, Rashi interprets the name as between two rivers, and the Aramaic translations also translate the name as the Euphrates River, and Josephus and the Septuagint translate the name as Mesopotamia.
Oh.
So it's around the area of the Euphrates, around Mesopotamia, basically, which I think fits because Haran is in that area.
You pronounce that as Euphrates?
Well, it's for the English people.
Oh, it'd be Euphrates.
Euphrates. Oh.
Yeah.
My English is not perfect, unfortunately.
That's all right. How rarely do we get to correct your pronunciation?
That's true. It is a nice change.
All right, so I'm going to continue on. Before he had finished praying, Rebekah came out with her jar on her shoulder. She was the daughter of Bethuel, son of Milcah, who was the wife of Abraham's brother Nahor, because this is the timeless information we need from God. God's going to give his manual on how to live on this planet, and these are the things we have to know. The thing was on her shoulder and who her dad was, because that's going to matter 3,000 years later.
So much.
The woman was very beautiful, a virgin. No man had ever slept with her. You have to say that twice. So she was a virgin, and
we'll get to that. I have a commentary there, but we'll get to that. Just finish to verse 20.
She went down to the spring, filled her jar, and came up again. That's a thing that needed to be explained. The servant hurried to meet her and said, "Please give me a little water from your jar." "Drink, my lord," she said, and quickly lowered the jar to her hands and gave him a drink. After she had given him a drink, she said, "I'll draw water for your camels too, until they have had enough to drink." So she quickly emptied the jar into the trough, ran back to the well to draw more water, and drew up enough for all of his camels. Without saying a word, the man watched her closely to learn whether or not the Lord had made his journey successful.
Okay, so before I start my commentary, Antoni Tenmonros asks, "What's the Euphrates pronunciation in Hebrew?" Well, the the word that is used, how we say the Euphrates is Prat, the river of Prat, Nahar Prat, which is
Yeah, so but before I'm sure Tomer, you have quite a bit to get to, but I do want to point out how much water camels would actually need, and the fact that
like I said, they drink a lot, and there's 10 of them.
Yeah, the fact that she's taking it all on one trip, ridiculous. That's like this almost like a Homeric level of
exactly.
This Herculean task, basically. Like it's so much. Now I feel like, I don't know, there might be some hints of a feeding the 5,000 kind of thing, but maybe I'm just looking at that too much.
No,
it's like I said before, it's the task of the hero or the heroine, which will delineate that the chosen girl is sufficiently virtuous to marry the prince, and blah 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 blah. or to be accepted by their family or what have you. It's very, yeah, it's the female version of the tale of the hero. You have to be, do some very feminine and subservient task to a ridiculous degree for no reason, and then you've proven your worth.
So about I've searched about the name Rebekah. The origin of this name is unclear. It could derive from the biblical word marbek, which could translate as being fat or fattened, which apparently was a sign of beauty in ancient times. But it could derive from the Semitic from the Semitic root al-bk, labak, which means to tie or secure. But as I've read it, it's not very clear where this name came from.
Yeah, I feel like depending on what culture you're a part of, I don't know if it would be necessarily if it would have been necessarily a sign of beauty. What's the word I'm looking for? Fertility. That would make sense.
Being overweight is a sign of beauty in some cultures, particularly in
Right,
areas where famine can be a problem.
Yeah.
If you manage to get fat, that's like, damn, how'd you do that?
Yeah, like you have food. Holy crap, that's amazing.
Kind of wealth.
Hot.
So
it really does depend on the culture. Yeah.
So about the no man that ever slept with her in verse 16. So, oh boy, Rashi comments that this means that she did not have anal sex. However,
That's oddly
Yeah.
specific.
Brilliant, Rashi.
However, Ibn Ezra comments that it is extremely unlikely that Scripture speaks about this. Instead, he writes that he writes that this verse refers to a certain sexual method where it is possible to sleep with a virgin and even to impregnate her without deflowering her.
Yeah.
He writes, however, that
soaking?
he writes that
is this the same purity culture bullshit that apparently they've been going on now? Is this soaking?
Yeah, Mormons do that.
He also writes that it is unseemingly to describe how this can be done.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
So
okay,
we're saying the virgin birth might have just been soaking?
Perhaps.
I thought for a moment when you say that there's a way to have sex with her without impregnating her, I'm thinking that's the loophole by Garfunkel and Oates.
Exactly. the anal sex, the loophole. Yeah, I could see that whole music video in my head.
Okay, so all right, I'm going to continue reading. I'm going to get off that. Let's see, what verse was
22.
I on here?
22.
There we go, 22. When the camels had finished drinking, the men took out a gold nose ring weighing a beka and two gold bracelets weighing 10 shekels. And then he asked, "Whose daughter are you? Please tell me. Is there room in your father's house for us to spend the night?" Now there's your pickup line. She answered him, "I am the daughter of Bethuel, the son of Milcah, bore to Nahor." And she added, "We have plenty of straw and fodder, as well as room for you to spend the night." Then the man bowed down and worshipped the Lord, saying, "Praise be to the God of my master Abraham, who has not abandoned his kindness and faithfulness to my master. As for me, the Lord has led me on the journey to the house of my father's relatives."
Yeah, so so I'm not sure what the Hebrew actually says, but there is, yours says father, mine says masters.
What I see here is Achi Adonai, which if we're talking modern Hebrew could mean brother, but I think it means master.
All right.
Honestly, there's no difference between father and master to a girl in those days.
Right. Yeah. Unfortunately. And yeah, the Becca as the unit there. So it's derived from a verb that means to split, so may refer to half a shekel.
Yeah, it's around 6 grams, around 0.21 ounce to the US people.
Yeah, that's what I have here, about 5.5 grams or a fifth of an ounce. I mean, obviously, this is an estimate based on, well, the best we can do. But yeah, at least it's not the 110-gram bracelets, because I don't want that much hanging from my nose. That just, ouch. I'm good. I'm good. No.
Yeah, one of the bragging points about the nose ring should not be its weight.
Yeah, that's gonna hurt.
All right, I'm going to read a couple more chats that are coming up here. So the dude offers $4.99. Thank you. Says, hello, everyone. Love your channel, Aaron. You helped me deprogram myself from an upstate New York creationist homeschooling cult that I grew up in. And then he continues, adding $9.99. Thank you for all of this series. I used to read the Bible and write it as part of my schooling assignments. So coming back to these passages with a critical context is a great therapy for me. Thank you very much.
I
Yes.
identify with that. That's what I'm doing too. I'm deconstructing what I learned when I was a child and a teenager about Christianity and all the Bible studies and stuff.
And then
so,
Anton,
yeah, me too. This is group therapy.
Yeah.
Anton Gomez, who was on my Quran series, he tosses another 50 Mexican pesos and says, Tomer, can you provide a link to read more about this Rashi guy? I need his commentary for Lot's story in the Quran.
I've linked the Wikipedia page about him in the chat. So
excellent.
All right, and continuing on. Should I continue on, or did anybody else want to read?
Continue.
Okay. The young woman ran and told her mother's household about these things. Now, Rebekah had a brother named Laban, and he hurried out to meet the man at the spring. As soon as he had seen the nose ring and the bracelets on his sister's arms, and heard Rebekah tell what the man said to her, he went out to the man and found him standing by the camels near the spring. Come, you are blessed by the Lord, he said. Why are you standing out here? I have prepared the house and a place for the camels. So the man went to the house, and the camels were unloaded. Straw and fodder were brought for the camels, and water for him and his men to wash their feet. Then food was set before him, and he said, I will not eat until I have told you what I have to say. Then tell us, Laban said. So he said, I am Abraham's servant. The Lord has blessed my master abundantly, and he has become wealthy. He has given him sheep and cattle, silver and gold, male and female servants, and camels and donkeys. My master's wife, Sarah, has borne him a son in her old age, and he has given him everything he owns. And my master made me swear an oath and said, You must not get a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites in whose land I live, but go to my father's family and to my own clan and get a wife for my son.
Because if it's not incest, it's not a proper wife.
Yeah, I'm going to go out and get some fodder. Could you give me a wife while you're out? Sure, I can pick up one of those. Then I asked my master, what if the woman will not come back with me? And he replied, use duct tape. No, he replied, the Lord before whom I walked faithfully will send his angel with you and make your journey a success so that you can get a wife for my son from the clan and from my father's family. You will be released from my oath if, when you go to my clan, they refuse to give her to you, then you will be released from my oath. Somebody want to explain that? I'm lost.
Basically, he retells the story. I also tried to find why he's telling the same story. I've tried, but I didn't really.
There is an answer for that. So that was like really common in biblical traditions. Like essentially at the beginning of a chapter or a story, they would start off setting up the plot, and then it would kind of end off with the same plot, and they would repeat it almost verbatim usually. This one does leave out some details, but it's really just to be like, here is the point of the story. This is the thing you should be concentrating on. This is the important part. So they would do that often.
I meant to say that I wanted to find a religious reason for this, but from commentators, the closest that I found was from Abravanel, but his commentary was a bit long, and I didn't really understand it, so I left it out. But I wanted to comment about Lavan, which I just loved Aaron's pronunciation, Laban.
Laban is how it is typically pronounced by English speakers, just so you know. It's
Yeah. So in modern Hebrew, at least, it's Lavan, and it translates to white. So he's the antagonist. So it possibly derives from the word Levana, which is another name for the moon, and possibly a name or nickname for the god of the moon in Haran. So, yeah, and about him hurrying out.
Dirty, evil idolater.
Could be. So about the hurrying out. So Rashi comments that he ran because in the next verse, which is verse 30, he saw the nose ring and thought that the servant was a rich man and he had an eye to his money. And Rabbi Sadia Gaon adds that it could also be because he was lightweight, young, and quick.
Could be both.
Yeah, could be both.
Clearly, he's like, "Oh, dude has gold. Let's see what's going on."
Yeah, let's talk to that guy. But yeah, essentially, so Abraham sends his servant, and his servant finds this woman who would be great for Abraham, and she talks to was Laban the brother, right?
Laban, Laban would have
Nahor.
been his nephew, I think, isn't it? Because Laban
No, I meant of
was
Rebekah. Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
So essentially, I think he's just trying to get like permission to have her as Abraham's wife. Looks like. Yeah.
Well, Isaac's wife.
Isaac. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
In verse 31, which is read, "I have prepared the house," it could also be read as "I have cleared the house." And again, Rashi comments that he cleared his house from idols. However, Sfono and Rabbi David Kimchi comment that he cleared space for the servant and his men. So the plain,
which does make more sense.
Yes.
Because that's what I have to do when people come over. We just have to take everything in the living room and go hide it in the shed.
Especially our idols, Pass those away. We don't want to look like. We don't offend people.
I actually have a commentary here about the repeating of the story from Rashbam, who comments that the speech is designed so the listeners will know that God had made it all happen. So that's the best I found.
To me, it sounds a bit like kind of a leftover potentially from oral tradition. If you're trying to make a story sick in oral tradition, there'll often be a lot of natural repetition in it. And I can see that coming into the written language in earlier stages of, well, I mean, this is fiction in a fashion.
Somebody commented that Laban was I lost it. It moved. It was an antediluvian brand of sunglasses.
I could see that. If you're repetitive, it makes it easier for people to remember, to repeat a real story.
And it can create a certain flow to the story, like in Genesis 1. There was evening, there was morning, the first day. There was evening, there was morning, the second day. It gives it a bit of, not full poetry, but a bit of poetic emphasis. And
I thought you were going to start rapping there. It was evening, it was morning.
I don't want to know about any Protestant raps.
Oh, no, you don't. You don't. I send that to people to torture them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awful. It's coming into my mind. I'm trying to brush it away.
Okay, when I came to the... Shall I continue?
Yes.
Okay. When I came to the spring today, I said, "Lord, God of my master Abraham, if you will, please grant success to the journey on which I have come." See, did I read this already?
No.
Is it repeating itself, or am I repeating myself?
It is repeating itself. It is repeating itself.
Okay. This is the exact same thing I just read. See, I am standing beside the spring. If a young woman comes out to draw water and I say to her, "Please let me drink a little water from your jar," and if she says to me, "Drink and I'll draw water for your camels too," let her be the one the Lord has chosen for my master's son. Before I finished praying in my heart, Rebekah came out with her jar on her shoulder. She went down to the spring and drew water, and I said to her, 'Please give me a drink.' She quickly lowered the jar from her shoulder and said, 'Drink, and I'll water your camels too.' So I drank, and she watered the camels also. I asked her, 'Whose daughter are you?' She said, 'The daughter of Bethuel, son of Nahor, whom Milcah bore to him.' Then I put the ring in her nose and the bracelets on her arms, and I bowed down and worshipped the Lord and prayed to the Lord, the God of my master Abraham, who had led me on the right road to get the granddaughter of my master's brother for his son. Now, if you will show kindness and faithfulness to my master, tell me, and if not, tell me, and if not, tell me, so I may know which way to turn." What?
Okay, so I see. So it looks like the servant here is he probably doesn't want to, like, if he gives the stuff to her family, then it would be like very presumptuous. Like, yeah, I'm just gonna take her. Here's the dowry, right? But instead, he's giving it to her, and then she goes off, and her brother needs to take a look at this rich guy. So.
So he needs to make sure he can actually get her for the dowry before he gives anything else away, I'm guessing.
Right, yeah, like you can't just like straight up just give the stuff to the family, because it's very like it is pretty, yeah, like I said, presumptuous. Although yeah, so you did finish yeah, you got past verse 48, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's interesting here is so this is pointed out by Van Setters. He notes the repetition, not just I mean, he does note the repetition of the actual narrative, but he also notes the repetition of the formula as well. So within this chapter, there's a doubling up of a good amount of themes. That you have two stories, right? You have the camel one, and then you have this one about about finding a wife. So you have the introduction to the situation, the commission, the objection, the strengthening of the commission, and then signs and confirmation, and the way they're kind of paralleled. So if you check like verse 1 against verses 34 through 36, and if you check verse 5, for example, with verse 39, you kind of see that it's doubled up, the same formula. And he notes here that Rose finds the closest parallel to the schema in 2 Kings 18:19 through 35 in the speeches of the Rabshakeh before the walls of Jerusalem, in which the form also occurs twice. It is found in the story of the negotiations between Saul and David concerning the latter's marriage to the king's daughters in 1 Samuel 18:17 through 27, as well as in extra biblical examples. What these parallels signify is that this messenger formula is the royal commissioning of an ambassador or other important emissary, and the Sitzumleben, or that's the German, but it's a setting in life or historical setting of the form, is the court. In the literary use of the form of Genesis 24, Abraham's household is being treated as if he were a king. This is further strengthened by the title that the servant bears as the senior servant of his house, who had charge of all his property in verse 2, and also by the entourage of 10 camels laden with royal gifts. The servant has the full powers of negotiation, even in the matter of the son's marriage.
Okay, so this is they're setting this up to be sort of a prefiguration of their own rituals of authority and aristocracy and so forth.
Yeah,
All I'm saying
essentially.
is, if I was God, and I'm gonna impart. Yeah, there's all these other people that have made up scriptures, supposedly all of them being the absolute truth and the revealed word of the one true God and everything. And then I am the actual one true God, and I'm going to bring out my scriptures. And it's not going to be like the Bhagavad Gita or any of the other Hindu things. I mean, it's not going to be like all of those other scriptures where, like what Zoroaster had, not like the Avestas or anything. I'm going to bring in the real word of God. And it's going to have this story in it.
Yep.
I'm going to be telling people this, this is the configuration. This is the Earth in relation to the rest of the cosmos. This is a basic idea of how the planet goes around the sun. The reason you wash your hands is because of microorganisms. You have to understand those. I'm going to give those kind of instructions. This story is not going to be in there. This story would only be in there if the Bible was completely made up bullshit and there's no God.
I mean, yeah, but like this is what you expect to stick in human minds. Stories that they invested their identity in, stories that they
And they have
invested their
no
history in.
relevance outside of that area,
No, it
outside of
doesn't.
that time.
Not at all.
It
Not
has
at
a
all.
typical formula for that part of that culture. So I mean, it was identifiable to them when they heard the story back then, and I don't know how identifiable it is today, for the people. Well,
So what
I
you're
mean,
saying is it's a vestigial story?
I mean, I know, I know, and I don't. Sorry, I'm sure that there are Jewish lectures and Midrashic explanations about all this story, and it's maybe important when it comes to this stuff. I'm personally, I don't really know, but maybe there will be Jews who say no, this story is important, but I don't really see why.
I mean, the job of pastors and priests when they speak, isn't it to find ways to make these stories appear relevant, to draw lessons from them? I mean, that's I went to church for years with people trying to draw meanings out of these
I don't
things.
think it's just lessons when it comes to Judaism, but also to derive stories or to maybe expand on the stuff. But again, I'm speculating here, so I don't want Dunning-Kruger to appeal on me as well. So
there are so many books that they were sifting through, that human editors and compilers and so forth, where you were reading through this and they decide this should be part of the infallible word of God. So we put that book in. And then books that they have in their collection refer to these other books, right? They talk about, the Book of Jasher and the Book of the Wars of the Lord and all like that. But they read Jasher, they read the Book of the Lord, Wars of the Lord, and they say, you know what, these are not God's word. So we're going to keep those out. We're going to keep the books that mention them, that refer to them. Those are the books. Those are the God's word. God refers to human authors.
Right, which is why you need to consider, the audience that they're writing to. If they're writing to a post-exilic audience, then having that sense of building a lineage for themselves, like that helps them stay as a community. So that's why, other stuff in like the Book of Jasher, for example, would have been, not seen as important to them because that wasn't really what they were going for. They, of course, wanted to hit the important notes of creation, as all religions did. But then they wanted to talk about their heritage and how they got there. And so they took, they did, like you said, they did cite their sources, actually, weirdly enough. And whether or not those sources are accurate, well, we can talk about that all day. But the thing that you have to the thing that we do have to consider when talking about its compilation is who the audience was. That is an important factor.
That's what gets me. I mean, I'm obviously not part of the target audience. I mean, because I don't care what this girl looked like 3,000 years ago. I don't care about the nose ring. I mean, none of that matters to anything, right? It's only if I'm part of that culture. So it's entirely cultural, and that's its only significance. It's not at all factual. It's not remotely historical. That's entirely cultural, and that's it.
I think maybe what's outstanding about the story is the wealth, and they saw wealth as coming from God as a reward for being faithful. So like this, because not everybody was wealthy. Very few people were wealthy.
Yeah.
And this must have, look at this guy. He gave me this bling, in my nose, right?
He gave me this 5-pound nose ring.
Yeah. Yeah, he must have a lot of shekels. I don't know.
And now I have 3 nostrils.
Depends how you count them, I suppose. But yeah, it's I mean, the part that I remember hearing in sermons, for example, was about Rebekah and about how she was generous and she went to all that extra work to show hospitality, and she was rewarded by being married off to her second cousin far away and never seeing her family again. But yeah. So the idea is, that element of it is part of, sort of a standard mythological tale about how you should behave. But yeah, it's I think the one thing that's clear, above all, is that while there can be ways to get value or interest or historical context from these books, the one thing that they absolutely cannot be in any sense is the literal absolute dictated word of God that we should worship as the Protestants do. Like, it's the only interpretation that has absolutely no value or validity or justification whatsoever, is this God dictaphoned, praise be, this is what we worship.
On that, look at the Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. She proved virtue by cleaning up after 7 jewel mining dwarves every day. It must have been a lot of work, and that's why she's worthy to marry the prince.
Exactly.
All right, so I'm going to read one more chat. This is Sailman, offers $4.99. It says, the only verse I ever liked in the Quran is, there is no compulsion in religion, because it contradicts the entire rest of the Quran. Which indeed it does. All right, so I'm going to continue reading. So, this is from verse 50. So Laban and Bethuel answered, this is from the Lord. We can say nothing to you one way or another. Here is Rebekah. Take her and go, and let her become the wife of your master's son, as the Lord has directed. So they're trading off this girl. Am I understanding this correctly? That this is somebody who's gone shopping for a wife for his son. His son's not there. She hasn't seen this.
Well, in later verses, it reads that he asks her if she wants to go, and she says yes.
I mean, as a girl in that time, your family is going to sell you off, hopefully, into what they consider to be a good position. Like, this is not, marriages were not about love. They were about, and especially in these days when, you have a lot of people who move around a lot of, goat herders and stuff. This is a mobile lifestyle. You're going to be traveling in part of this new clan. And I mean, even the Chinese saying would probably have been relevant to the attitudes of this time. Better a dog than a daughter, because a dog will protect the house, but a daughter will leave it. But I mean, you send your daughter away. If you care about her, you at least try and find her, a position as a primary wife with someone who's well off enough that she's going to be taken care of, and that if she has sons, she'll be able to, establish herself in the household. And
I guess I'm just wrestling with the notion that okay, she agrees to this. Mm-hmm. Would you like to go? Yes. What is she basing this on? She hasn't seen the kid, right? The guy that she's supposed to become the bride of. She hasn't seen him. There's nothing there. All she knows is, hey, 5-pound nose ring. You must have bucks. So
yeah,
that's it, right? So she thinks she's going to go off to a life of more wealth than what she has.
Well, she thinks she's going to be established as a wife, which means she would be there, that they have money. And also, this is family. She's going to be marrying her second cousin, I believe. So this is, there's some idea, I think, that someone who's a member of your own clan or extended clan will have some respect for you. You're not coming in as a total outsider. There would be some kind of familial loyalty. Okay. That might protect you more than marrying a total stranger that didn't have that family connection.
It's also an alliance between two families, so it makes both families richer if they ally with another wealthy family.
I wanted to comment on verse 50 where it says Lavan and Bethuel answered. So, most commentators, but several commentators have written that basically Lavan answered first and then Bethuel. So Rashi comments that Lavan answered first because he was a wicked person and so rushed in to answer before his father. However, Rabbi David Kimchi comments that Lavan spoke before his father, seeing that Bethuel was an old man and the affairs of the family were already being conducted by Lavan.
Yeah, on that actually. So Alter notes that okay, so the convincing conclusion of many textual critics is that the appearance of Bethuel is a later scribal or redactional insertion. The surrounding narrative clearly suggests that Bethuel is deceased when these events occur. Otherwise, it is hard to explain why the home to which Rebekah goes running is referred to as her mother's household. It is her brother who is the male who speaks exclusively on behalf of the family. Only her mother and brother are mentioned, never her father. Elsewhere in the report of the betrothal transaction, and even in this verse, answered is in the singular, with an odd switch to the plural occurring only for said.
Okay.
Tomer, would you like to take over from here?
Sure.
Okay.
We are at verse 52. Okay. When Abraham's servant heard what they said, he bowed down to the ground before the Lord. Then the servant brought out gold and silver jewelry and articles of clothing and gave them to Rebekah. He also gave costly gifts to her brother and to her mother. Then he and the men who were with him ate and drank and spent the night there. When they got up the next morning, he said, "Send me on my way to my master." But her brother and her mother replied, "Let the young woman remain with us 10 days or so, then you may go." But he said to them, "Do not detain me. Now that the Lord has granted success to my journey, send me on my way so I may go to my master." Then they said, "Let's call the young woman and ask her about it." So they called Rebekah and asked her, "Will you go with this man?" "I will go," she said. So they sent their sister Rebekah and her way along with her nurse and Abraham's servant and his men. So I'll start my commentary with verse 53 about the costly gifts. So the word that is used is migdanot. Let me see if I pronounce it right. Yeah, migdanot. So this word, according Rashi comments that this word has the same meaning as megadim in Song of Songs 7:14, which means precious fruits. And Ibn Ezra comments that this could also refer to expensive garments.
Okay, so we're giving a dowry possibly of what would be exotic fruits in that area, garments.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
and about verse 55, where it says her brother and her mother replied, "But where is Bethuel?" So as Lorence said, according to Rashi, using Bereshit Rabbah 60:12, he wished to prevent the marriage, and therefore an angel came and killed him.
Oh.
Yeah. However, Ibn Ezra disagrees with this, and he says that they received the gifts and Bethuel was silent.
He couldn't just be dead because sometimes people get old and die.
Yeah,
No,
but
that never happens.
yeah,
No,
but
obviously not.
yeah, but considering that this was the day after, it's highly unlikely. I mean, or maybe not.
He would have like already been dead. Like she just says that she was the daughter of Bethuel, but he doesn't really do much. All the actions that would be taken by the father are taken by Laban instead.
And then his Bethuel just seems to be occasionally edited in randomly with Laban, but not. It's sort of
right.
Yeah, not.
And another thing about the 10 days or so. So, according to several commentators like Rashi, David Kimchi, and Gersonides, this actually means between 10 months to a year. And this is based on Leviticus 25:29, where the word for days actually means a year. And I think it also translates this way.
Okay, so they wanted to keep her in like a long-term betrothal kind of a thing.
Yeah, I think I've read a commentary that says that they done so they could think about the offer. I don't know who said it. Let me check real quick. But you can
the other
comment.
thing that's not clear is how old Rebekah was.
Oh my God. So I wanted to speak about this when we reach chapter 25, but this is quite controversial. Rashi's commentary on this is probably the most disturbing commentary that I've read, because he says that she was at the age of 3 when she married him.
But that's not. How is she supposed to have carried water for 10 camels at 3?
Yeah. You're right. That's also
like,
one
what
of
is
the most
she, baby
illogical.
Hercules?
And so she's supposed to be beautiful,
Yeah,
But she
but
With
looks
the
like a
nose
Peanuts
ring.
character, right?
hold on,
So,
I'm going to pull out my Genesis 25
and why
notes
would they make a big deal? And nobody had slept with her.
because
Who
she
the
was
hell had time?
Oh, please tell
um
me virgin 3-year-olds were not a rarity.
wait a
Please.
minute. Okay, so I've read this interpretation has several problems. The first that you've mentioned is, if Sarah was 3 years old, how could she have lifted a jar full of water and poured it from her shoulder? Like, it doesn't make sense.
Why did
And
somebody come up with that assumption?
I'll get to that. So another problem is that this interpretation assumes that the death of Sarah happened right after the binding. So if you notice that when I talked about the death of Sarah, there was a midrash that said that it happened right after the binding of Isaac, because the Samael killed her, and so.
And
Well,
Isaac was
I just
still
wanna
comparatively young at
confirm.
that
And
time.
according to this midrash, he was 37 years old.
Okay,
However,
so in the previous chapter, we had this chick who was like 90 years old and still
More than that.
hot, so hot that she's worth all these camels.
And then 5 minutes later, she's 127.
When 5 minutes later,
And
now we're in the next chapter, and we have a 3-year-old who's beautiful in Herculean strength.
I wanted to say that this interpretation, there are many who disagree with this. I mean, many rabbis of Chazal disputed the midrash that Rashi is based on. Which they use other midrashes that say that she was 12 and a half years old or 14 years old, which was probably acceptable age at the time. And also many interpreters such as Ibn Ezra, Nachmanides, Chizkuni, Abravanel reject this interpretation, either by rejecting that the death of Sarah happened many years, either by claiming that the death of Sarah happened many years after the binding of Isaac, or that the declaration of Rebekah's birth declared an event that happened in the past. Like she came to be way before the binding of Isaac happened. So
well, because there's no indication in the text of the age of Isaac during the binding of Isaac. A lot of the art I've seen, he's like maybe 13.
That's Ibn Ezra's interpretation.
Yeah, and that seems to be. It seems like because Sarah has him at like 99, and then she dies at 127. So if you lined up the binding of Isaac with the death of Sarah, he would be
37,
26, 27.
No, I think it's 37.
Because she has him at 99, or does she have him at 90?
90, I think.
Oh, okay, my mistake.
Abraham was 100 at the time.
So you're making a connection there that's not justified by, not you, obviously, the commentators are not justified by the text, but that at least makes them understand why they would have this. Now, the thing with the age of Rebekah, like 3, is obviously very disturbing.
Yes.
I know that, like, in those days, obviously, if you were going to arrange a marriage for your child, you could sign the contract at any age. They could both be 5, and you could be like, yeah, we'll make the deal. And then they would obviously grow up and get married at a later time, but the contract and the dowry and the figuring out of the mechanics of the contract, as it were, could be done at any age. You wouldn't actually have a wedding for your 5-year-olds, ideally. Not a real one.
Sable Eagle puts a comment in here. It says, crazy thought, but 3 years beyond her first menstrual flow rather than 3 years beyond birth. Sleeping Beauty seems to have been a theme that life as a child ends at the first drop of blood.
That actually makes a certain amount of sense, particularly since, fertility and all that would have been the only reason women had any value, apparently.
Yes, exactly. And then Logan Fisher says, question for the panel. There are people who claim the binding of Isaac was followed through, and that just moved, followed through with, and he doesn't show up later in the chapter. Any truth to this? I'm going to read that again.
I don't understand what.
Yeah, I don't think I did either. There are people who claim the binding of Isaac was followed through with, and he doesn't show up later in the chapter.
He was actually murdered.
Yeah.
It's when we went over Genesis 22, I pointed out that at least some scholars believe that the part where he takes the knife to slay his son, and then at that moment there's the angel and the psych, no, here, have a goat, it's fine. bit that some believe that to have been a redactor editing, which means that the original form of the story might have involved him being killed and resurrected, or doing the switcheroo with the sheep but changing the shape, like in the myth, with the sacrifice of the one, like the Greek myth with the so that's sort of inferred from where the editing occurs, that the original version may have been worse, but it's hard to tell, obviously, from what was cut out, what would have been there if something was cut out. So
we did cover that, though.
Yeah, we did cover that in the last episode.
Constellation Pegasus for 1999 says, have you used the Learning Bible, a contemporary English version in this series? It says outright that the Hebrews believed in a flat earth and metal dome cosmology. It's easy to read. My favorite Bible to read.
See, I don't know about metal dome cosmology, but they certainly would have believed in a flat earth, because everyone at the ancient Near East at the time believed in a flat earth. That was just their cosmology. But the whole metal dome thing, I haven't heard that.
There's the firmament.
Maybe they are. Maybe they are.
Crystal dome. A crystal dome.
Maybe they are referring to the rakia, because the raka could also has a connotation of metal bending or something. I remember.
As if the sky had been hammered out. So in one place, it's described as looking like crystal. It's mirrored. It's taking the shape of molten glass, or that it looks like molten glass. But elsewhere, it's described, as Tomer said, the rakia, where it looks like it's hammered out.
Okay, I guess I could see that being a sort of an ethereal something or other that they compare variously to crystal, to metal, and possibly also to gemstones.
Yeah, I can't wait till we get to the parts where it describes the firmament.
Yeah, like I knew, I knew that when they're talking about the dome, that would be the firmament, but I just never heard it described as metal.
Yeah, no, crystal was what I heard more, and that, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what verse are you on, Tomer?
60.
Okay.
And they blessed Rebekah and said to her, our sister, may you increase to thousands upon thousands. May your offspring possess the cities of their enemies. Then Rebekah and her attendants got ready and mounted the camels and went back with the men. So the servant took Rebekah and left. Now Isaac had come near Be'er Lachai Roi, for he was living in the Negev. He went out to
this verse here is why I asked you to read, because I knew you would melt when you hear me say "Beer Lahoy Roy."
Oh God!
I'm sorry. Okay. Continue.
Yeah, he went out to the field one evening to meditate, and as he looked up, he saw camels approaching. Rebekah also looked up and saw Isaac. She got down from her camel and asked the servant, "Who is this man in the field coming to meet us?" "He is my master," the servant answered. So she took her veil and covered herself. Then the servant told Isaac all he had done. Isaac brought her into the tent of his mother Sarah, and he married Rebekah, so she became his wife, and he loved her. And Isaac was comforted after his mother's death.
Aww.
So this is not something that is related to rabbinical commentary, but about verse 61, there is a famous King James Bible erratum from 1823 called Rebekah's Camels Bible, where the camels is replaced by damsels.
So she was riding the damsels.
Yes.
Okay.
That's good. That's good. That's
that's
good.
Now, Tomer, did you have notes for Genesis 25?
Yes, I did have. But I think up to verse 25, I think.
Right. Do you want to continue to 25, or you want to wait?
Yeah, I have no problem. But I think up to maybe 19 I can. Okay. So about the to meditate, the word that is used here is lasuach, and its meaning is not really clear. So Rashi and Nachmanides comment that this word means to pray, as the translation suggests. However, Ibn Ezra and David Kimchi comment that this means to walk among the trees or shrubs, as the word suach possibly derives from the word siach, which is a shrub.
I mean, his mother's dead. He's stuck at home with his geriatric father, who already, mutilated his dick and then tied him up and tried to murder him as a sacrifice. I'm just saying, going for a walk is not the most irrational thing for Isaac to want to do right about now.
Well, maybe. Well, I mean,
share.
People with grief probably will take a walk.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Also, I don't want to be in the tent with Dad because Dad is crazy.
So, we continue with chapter 25, but I can go up to verse 18 because I don't really have my commentary for the rest.
Okay. Lorence, what do you think?
I mean, that's kind of up to you guys. So for chapter 25, I don't know exactly how long you want the show to go. It's not like a super long chapter or anything.
No, but the verses after verse 18 are quite important because they're talking about Jacob and Esau.
Yeah, absolutely.
We could get the other stuff out of the way, the bits.
The generation stuff. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
because these are all genealogy.
Yeah, we can get that out of the way.
And
just to kind of echo what Arn said about chapter 24, it was a lot of verses, kind of a nothing story, I think.
Well, it was a very long chapter, but then it repeated half of itself. So yeah.
I think it was actually important to cover, though. I mentioned, the kind of royal thinking that was put into it.
Very much so.
Okay, since this chapter has Hebrew words, I think I should read
I just looked at that first verse and went, nope, Tomer's doing this.
We choose you.
I mean, unless you want me to hear Jokshan, Medan, and Dedan.
Shua, Jokshan.
Okay.
Fuck it, I'm doing it. Abraham had taken another wife whose name was Keturah, and she fought Godzilla. She bore him Zimran, Jokshan, Medan, Midian, Ishbak, and Shua. Jokshan was the father of Sheba and Dedan. The descendants of Dedan were the Asherites, or the Letushites and the Leumites.
Yeah.
The sons of Median were Ephah, Epher, Hanok, Abida, and Eldah. All of these were descendants of Keturah.
Oh God.
Tomer's having an aneurysm.
It's okay, Tomer. You can just mute him for a little bit. It's okay.
Okay, Tomer, take it from here.
I can stop.
Okay.
I can stop.
Before I continue, I want to comment on the Keturah. So Rashi comments based on an opinion in Bereshit Rabbah 61:4 that Keturah is actually Hagar. However, other commentators like Rashbam, Ibn Ezra, Nachmanides, and other rabbis from the same source reject this interpretation. Rashi adds that her name is derived from the Hebrew word for incense, ktoret, because her deeds were as beautiful as incense.
Her deeds being to give 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 children to a man who was 137 years old.
Yes, beautiful
Which
deeds.
I'm sure were all entirely his and in no way the result of anyone else in the tent.
Nope.
So I'll continue with verse 6. But thank you very much, Aaron. But while he was still living, he gave gifts to the sons of his concubines and sent them away from his son Isaac to the land of the east.
We missed verse 5 because Abraham left everything he owned.
Yeah, Abraham left everything. I thought Aaron read it, but okay.
Sorry,
Abraham left everything he owed to Isaac. Okay, so Abraham lived 175 years. Then Abraham breathed his last and died at a good old age, an old man and full of years, and he was gathered to his people. His sons Isaac and Ishmael buried him in the cave of Machpelah near Mamre, in the field of Ephron, son of Tzohar the Hittite, the field Abraham had bought from the Hittites. There Abraham was buried with his wife Sarah. After Abraham's death, God blessed his son Isaac, who then lived near Be'er Lachai Roi.
All right, so I got to throw in here. How long ago was it that God decreed? It was Genesis 6, wasn't it? That God decreed that your age will be 120.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, he just shut up. It's all perfectly rational if you stop asking questions.
So,
and also counting. Math is a satanic conspiracy against God.
Math. Okay. So about verse 9 in Ishmael. About Ishmael. Rashi comments based on Bereshit Rabbah 38:12 that Ishmael repented of his evil ways and yielded the precedence to Isaac. According to Rabbi David Kimchi, the sons of Keturah are not mentioned because Isaac and Ishmael were more honored than Abraham's other sons and had been more beloved to him. It could also be that Abraham already sent those sons away during his lifetime so that only Isaac and Ishmael remained in the region.
Well, what was Ishmael doing there? He sent him out to die in the desert as a boy alone and abandoned his mother with a single day's rations. And the hell he's there burying his father. If he does, it's only to
Rashi
relieve
comments
himself on his grave.
Yeah, so again, Rashi comments that he basically Ishmael repented his evil ways, because I think I've said this before, but there was one commentary that said that Abraham banished him because of his evil ways. So then Ishmael repented of his evil ways, and so he was allowed to come back.
Yeah, there's no amount of evil ways that's involved sending the mother of your child into the desert with your child in her arms in a single day's rations.
If you remember that about the Rashi's commentary about what Ishmael has done to Isaac, he said that it could either be murder or idolatry or sexual misconduct. So,
this, I have to say, this is just one more example of why part of deconstruction for so many people has been refusing to get caught into the toxic culture of mandated forgiveness and these toxic family dynamics. Like the kinds of behavior you see here that are apparently totally fine and everyone still is good after. Like it's absolutely unspeakable. And this is supposed to be the model for a godly man, for a friend of God, and the way he treats his family and the way his family interacts. And this is just all he's just so virtuous that nothing he does should be held against him. This is so damn toxic, and it has borne toxic fruit.
This commentary it sounds like rationalizing, ad hoc rationalizing of things that don't appear in the verses, like because the verse seems to say that Ishmael was sent away because he offended his mother offended Sarah.
Yeah, that's the point of the Agadic Midrashic works. They expand on the verses. Because if
Hagar isn't there, so maybe he repented of standing up for his mother when she was being abused.
Well, if you go with the interpretation that Keturah is Hagar, then but no, not everybody accepts.
Are the Midrashic texts contemporary to this text?
No,
but so it sounds like it's after the fact. And
but again, in Judaism, there is two kinds of Torahs. There is the oral Torah and the Torah from the heavens, or the part of the Talmud is the Torah, oral Torah. It is still considered a part of what God told Moses, but it just from oral traditions, as according to Judaism.
Okay.
So
yeah, exactly. So, they believe that it was just like not mentioned, so they felt the need to mention it, but like no.
From the oral tradition.
Yeah, but no, they're just that's just a lot of copium.
Yeah.
Well,
I shall
yeah,
continue,
Odium. Yeah.
or does Aaron want to?
Yeah. Nephilim Slade says, "Hey, Aaron, do you plan to dye the rest of your hair blue, or is there significance to just the facial hair?" Well, I wouldn't call it significance. You know, I'm about to turn 60 years old, like next week. And there was a
Congratulations.
point where I
Congratulations.
had like one asymmetric gray stripe in my beard, and I thought that looked kind of cool. But then when one half of this mustache turned gray, I'm like, no, that doesn't work. So that's why the beard is blue. That would, and because I wanted to dye it something that people would know that I'm not just trying to fake whatever. I mean, I dye it a color that people know that I'm dyeing it. Yeah. So anyway, Levente, how do we say this?
Gonchi?
Gonzi? I have no idea. Levente
Maybe
Gonzi?
maybe
Gunchi?
Gurnchi because of the
Gunchi,
umlaut.
yes.
Maybe.
So if I don't know which umlaut that applies to, but yeah, if it was Norse, I think that would be Gonchi. I implore you, Aaron, to please, at the end of this series, make an additional video just of your biblical pronunciation.
I think we should delegate that task to Tomer to go through old videos and just do a mashup of the worst pronunciations.
I hate you so much.
I love you too, honey.
A great April Fool's Day video. Here's what you could do, Aaron. You could read First Chronicles 1 through 9 and just butcher everything.
Yes.
Oh God.
And then Malo the Yoshi says, ask Aaron if he'd debate Turek. I'd love to see Aaron cream pie the bejesus out of him. I hate that fucker's arrogance, and I want Aaron to take his ass off his pedestal. Well, yeah, I would debate Turek. Turek won't debate me. And that may be because we've met. And it didn't go well. It went so badly that I was removed from the room by my own allies.
Wow.
Asking me to calm my ass down.
Wow. Okay. I shall continue with, we are in verse 12. This is the account of the family line of Abraham's son Ishmael, whom Sarah's slave Hagar the Egyptian bore to Abraham. These are the names of the sons of Ishmael listed in the order of their birth. Bechor Ishmael, Neviot, Kedar, Adbeel, and Mifsam. I think I've read it. Oh, sorry. I read it wrong. Nebiot.
You read it wrong. What if I'd read it?
No, because I thought that Bechor was the name, but it's the firstborn. So
okay.
Nebioth, the firstborn of Ishmael, Kedar, Adbeel, and Mifsam, and Mishma, Duma, Masa, Hadad, Tema, Yitur, Nafish, and Kidma. These were the sons of Ishmael, and these are the names of their 12 tribal rulers according to their settlement and camps. Ishmael lived 137 years. He breathed his last and died, and he was gathered to his people. His descendants settled in the area of Havilah to Shur, near the eastern border of Egypt. So, and as you go toward Ashur, and they lived in hostility toward all the tribes related to them.
And once again, Genesis 6 says that God limited lifespans to 120 years.
At least 137 is in the vicinity. It's like God made it, 70, which is 70. But, if someone lives to 86, you're like, he got a little extra.
175 for Abraham?
Yeah, no, that's just insane.
So what's funny about this is that God I often hear the argument that the laws of nature had to come from a lawgiver, right? So they don't understand what a natural law is. But in this case, the implication is that you can break the laws of nature.
About verse 18, which says lived in hostility toward, it actually translates to, literally translates to, he fell upon the faces of all his brethren, or upon all his brothers. So Rashi and Rashbam interpret that the word he fells as he dwelt, in accordance with Genesis 16:12. And Ibn Ezra interprets it to mean that Ishmael's portion fell among his brethren.
I got to say once again, Tomer, that I appreciate your having your background on this, because I mean you read these things and note things that we wouldn't. Well, maybe Lorence.
I mean, I think Lorence is much more advanced in his knowledge than I do, but
Well,
I mean,
that's not what I'm
definitely not
saying.
of
I'm
the
saying,
Hebrew,
that
but
your background, being Jewish, living in Israel, you're going to have a different perspective than I in Texas or Lawrence
yeah,
in
I mean,
Milwaukee, right?
Yeah.
I think I don't know if it's quite controversial, but when I read the Bible, there are several portions that I find quite beautiful, and sometimes when you read it in the Hebrew language, I mean, there are one of my favorite authors, Shai Agnon, which I have several books of him. He writes in this kind of like biblical Chazalic way, which I absolutely love. The songs are, in my opinion, very beautiful. The Lament of David is gorgeous. So I don't. I'm not in the way to reject the Bible entirely as, I don't know, as garbage. I think it's quite. It's a it's a literary masterpiece in my opinion. I don't know.
Okay, well, I'm not going to discredit the Bible as far as ancient literature,
Yeah.
but is God breathed? Absolutely not.
Of course
Yeah.
not. Of course not.
So, and there's a beautiful illustration of that in the next chat is Kicker White Lion for 20 Czech kroner said, "Did Gandalf come back yet, or are we not there yet?"
Sorry, we're not there yet. Gandalf still has to fight the Balrog before he can come back. So
Wait, is
Oh, wait,
Gandalf Eliao?
okay. I would kind of like to not apologize, I guess, but it's a thing here, Tomer, in America, where American Protestants and Arn is like unknowingly doing this when he pronounces things in our Americanized way. They don't, in a way, they don't. I grew up around these people. They don't care what the original pronunciation is. We Americans always rename.
Well, considering that they believe that the King James version is the ultimate version ever.
Yeah.
Then
like Protestants worship their version of the Bible.
Yeah, they have white Jesus.
Yeah, I wish that like Anton Gomez or anybody else that speaks Spanish, especially as their primary language, if any of these people could hear my mother doing Duolingo trying to learn Spanish.
Yeah.
By the
Because
way,
she would pronounce. It seemed like she was trying to pronounce things more Texas white.
Yeah.
But
when
by
I
the
was
way,
a kid,
go on.
You know how you're in your school, they take a roll, and the gym teacher, this coach, he was like, Jesus, and of course, you know, the kid's name is Jesus. Yeah, and finally when he realized his mistake, because the kid didn't correct him, because he's probably used to this happening a lot, and he goes, "That's a great name, boy." This is what we do here.
I wanted to say that even to point out that my pronunciation of Hebrew is a modern one. It could be that my pronunciation is not the correct in pronunciation from the biblical times, but I'm trying my best.
Okay, so to
this is
give
the
you an
closest
illustration of what I was just talking about, I mean, I'm listening to her do her Spanish language lessons, and it's like, "Si hablas español."
I don't think any of us know, nor will ever know, unless there's some sort of time machine invented, what the original pronunciation would have been precisely. But I'm fairly certain, Tomer, that yours is closest of anyone here.
It's influenced based on the stuff, but it also influenced by foreign languages. But yeah, it's the closest because it's Hebrew.
Yeah, I don't even think Jesus is the right pronunciation, right?
No, it's Yeshua.
Yeshua.
Yeah, and in Greek it would be Jesus.
And in Judaism they call him Yeshu, and they give it negative connotations because Jesus is bad.
Well, I can't really blame them for thinking that.
There's some who
and in Narnia it's pronounced Gandalf.
There are some who, because of there are some who give the abbreviation for the Yeshu Yud Shin Vav as may his name and may his name and memory shall be erased, or something like that.
Okay.
So
let's see if we can finish this up. Tomer?
Yes.
Oh no, I said that I wanted to stay away from the verse 19 forward because it's
Oh, you want to pick
important.
up at Jacob and Esau next time?
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like
Okay.
that's a good idea.
That will be more involved. We wouldn't be able to get enough commentary in on that one today.
Okay.
I don't think my commentary is ready for this.
All right. So the next one we will do Genesis 25. Okay.
Perfect.
All right. I want to thank everybody for participating. Everybody that was watching. Oh, I got another chat to read. All right. Hold on a second. Mr. Krenin says, do you think of Abraham as more documentary or more mythic? Which parts and why? It's not. Abraham is the most mythic. I mean, it's just there's no truth to that. Abraham may as well be Gandalf.
Yep.
And then the same person, Mr. Krenin, says, what do you think of the comparison of Abrahamic mythology to the Vedic Indo-European myth lore and the primordial sacrificial father Yam, from whose body the world/society was made? I am not that familiar with Vedic scripture. I mean, I've read the Bhagavad Gita, but I've never read the Vedic scriptures at all. I mean, I watched a movie that was supposed to be a film version of the Mahabharata, but the Mahabharata is this massive epic poem, and there was no way to even squish that into, I don't think, to squish that into a movie. So I cannot intelligently comment on, with this one exception that we're going to bring up when we get to, I think it's Genesis 32, where Jacob wrestles God, because there's a counter example in the Mahabharata where Krishna has King Arjuna wrestle a lake god, and the two stories have so many similarities that it looks like these are both, the biblical version and the Vedic version are both talking about the same original story, not same original historic event, but the same original story has been adopted by both of these different religions over time.
I find this interesting that there's pieces of other mythology in it, and as a former Christian, I could see other people's mythology, but I couldn't see the mythology here. So whenever we bring up these kind of points, that's interesting to me, because it's like the evolution of religion from other religions. They adopt and co-opt and paint over other stories. Like Cinderella probably has hundreds of versions. Even in Native American culture and Asian culture as well.
Yeah, here's my thoughts on comparing this sort of stuff. So when it comes to similarly with Aaron, I haven't read the entirety of the Mahabharata. I did read the Bhagavad Gita. I had to do that for a class. But with whenever we're doing any kind of mythological comparisons, we have to keep in mind not to fall down the pit of parallelomania. So if we find some parallels, that does not necessitate taking from another source. It could just be you can have common storytelling motifs, like in literature today we have those, but we wouldn't, like, how so many movies and books have like the whole damsel in distress theme, right? But they're not like copying each other. It's just like a way of telling a story and getting a point across.
I get that, but I also see there's definitely pieces of other mythology in the Bible.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I got a comment. Somebody wrote a comment. Angelo Ziccarelli says 500 witnesses of Jesus Christ's resurrection. No other religion can say that. Well, actually, Christianity can't say that because we don't have even one of those witnesses. What we have is an unsupported assertion that there were many witnesses. But if you go back earlier than Christianity, earlier than Judaism, you get back into Hinduism. Yeah, they say that a lot. There's many times just in the Bhagavad Gita, to say nothing about the Mahabharata and the Vedic scriptures. They have a library of holy books, not just one holy book. They've got a library full of them, and there's many instances where Krishna, just Krishna, throw out all the other gods, just Krishna himself has done more things in front of a grander audience than anything Jesus ever did. So yeah, you don't say no other religion can say that. Every other religion has said that.
Also,
to briefly circle back to Lawrence's point that sometimes there isn't a pattern there, like with the parallelism, like
not that there isn't a pattern, but that there is taking direct
that connection. One didn't inspire the other. Yeah, because I mean, to support that, I don't think the Cinderella story of the Native Americans could have been inspired by the one that we know because of the separation of the cultures of the time. So that does happen. Just because there is a similarity there doesn't mean that they're related.
It doesn't mean that one copied the other directly, but there can be some common ancestry story-wise sometimes. And it's hard to tell some.
Yeah, this is why like doing the historical analysis is important too, because that way you can actually prove a link between these things.
Yeah.
Like when we're talking about the takeover of Babylonian mythology into the Bible, that has a very clear historical link that we can actually show. But then for something like Indo-European stuff or Proto-Indo-European, whatever, that is much more difficult to show.
That was one of the things that I liked about when I was exploring the neo-pagan side. I mean, when I stopped believing in Christianity, I kind of quickly stopped believing in theism. I mean, didn't take much of a step. I looked at some of the pagan religions. I hung out with the Forge Coven in San Antonio, so a Wicca group, and their high priest told me that his patron deity was Dionysus, and so we talked a little bit about Dionysus. Dionysus turned water into wine many centuries before Jesus. And not only did he come first, he did it better.
Much better.
Because Jesus did the Penn and Teller trick where you pour water into the jug, you turn the jug upside down, and wine comes out. Penn and Teller showed how we can do that as a magic trick, right? But what Dionysus did, Penn and Teller could not do. Dionysus ordered the springs of the earth to come forth wine. So wine is bubbling up out of the earth. That's a hell of a much better trick. My thought was, why would God create his son to be a copy of an already common human myth? Why would he make Jesus a complete duplicate of the mythology that people already believed in?
Well, a discount ripoff.
Exactly. Yeah, not even as good as the original.
No, this is the dollar store Barbie version of Dionysus.
Yeah, so my thought was that either Dionysus really could turn water into wine just like Jesus did, or Jesus couldn't really do it either.
No.
I think the idea that Jesus couldn't do it either is the more reasonable conclusion.
But how can you take this from me? This is the one thing I liked about him, was that he could get you drunk.
I remember once I was criticized by someone else, and this carried weight in a community type social situation, where someone said, "Well, she thinks that Jesus was a common conjurer," you know, and that still shocks people today that we would say something like that, because they're just very literal.
Oh no, he was not a common conjurer. He was a very low grade conjurer.
Yeah, again, we make reference to Krishna. Krishna has in Hindu culture, Krishna has, and there's many gods that have these. I mean, a lot of different gods have many different stories. But I remember reading this Hindu article that was talking about all of the different adventures that Krishna did. He had more adventures, more stories of heroism and everything than Hercules had. Krishna, there was no way that one man in a single lifetime could do all of this stuff. It's like compacting James Bond, all of the different James Bonds into a single lifespan, right? There's just too much going on there. But that's how Krishna was represented. Super powered superhero 3,000 years ago.
I'm sorry if I'm interrupting, but Larry Fishman said the name Tomer as it's actually Tomer, but I don't I'm not really I don't really fault you. You can call me Tomer, whatever you want.
I don't like to mispronounce people's names when I know how it's actually pronounced. Just to be clear on that.
Mm.
So I'd rather say your name the right. I mean, my name is Aaron. I get pissed off when people call me Aaron.
Yeah, but
I'm not just going to decide that my name is Aaron now. I'm going to
yeah,
fight it.
I know, but I understand that Americans have a very hard time pronouncing the name, so
It's
they
true.
don't
Yeah,
say
I
it
may need a
they
little
don't say it
coaching.
correctly, but it's very difficult, I think.
Okay. All right. Well, you just coach me a little. I'll get it right. I'll do the best I can. All right. Do we have anything else to cover?
No. I just wanted to mention. Just wanted to mention that this week is Sukkot, another Jewish holiday. So, happy Sukkot.
Happy Sukkot.
What are you celebrating?
I think it's about the Exodus again, about the Jews.
That's the Feast of Booths, right?
They are selling these kinds of tents with with the roofs as, I think it's date leaves.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. They're
palm
trying.
leaves.
They're trying to replicate.
The palm booths in the.
Yeah,
I
it's
remember
not.
that.
Yeah, and they have.
Yeah, they're trying to
several,
replicate what it would be like to live out in the wilderness. So.
Yeah, and they have four kinds of plants. I don't know how to translate them. I can only say their Hebrew words: etrog, lulav, hadas, and arava, and they all have these specific all have the specific things. For example, etrog is like a fruit. It's like a citrus fruit which has taste and smell, and arava is doesn't have taste and doesn't have smell, etc., etc. But
this is the only part of religion that kind of interests me, what you're talking about, that it preserves some of the customs and practices of our ancient ancestors.
I mean, we had this week we had Yom Kippur and usually fast, but I decided to keep a little bit of a tradition, and I just half fast. I only drank, I didn't eat, but I don't know.
It can be a way to maintain a connection with our ancestry, with the part of the greater human story.
Especially when in Judaism, like I'm aware of the harsh life that Jews had. So I just
and that connection can be very important to people, and I think that can be a part of retaining our humanity, retaining our connection with the greater story of our people, where we've come from. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that in and of itself is a good thing. What people do with that and what they justify in the name of that, not always. But
and some of those are barbaric as well.
I can understand, living in Israel and being part of this culture, and you have these stories that are part of your culture, and that's what that means to you. What I'm contesting is somebody sitting in a trailer park in Alabama, coming up with this completely perverted thing about what it means to them,
trying to co-opt that history. I think we'd all agree that is not healthy. Although when you said the thing about trying to shove all the different lives of James Bond into a single character, I immediately thought of Christopher Lee, and that he's probably the closest to that in an actual person. I'm just going to say.
Not only was he Dracula and Lord Dooku and Sauron, and
but he was an actual agent during the Second World War for MI6, and when he played Saruman, and Peter Jackson said to him, okay, so imagine you're getting stabbed with a knife in the back. He said, I don't have to imagine what that's like. Because he had seen people stabbed. He knew.
Then, add on to that he also, I think he spoke 4 languages, right? And but one of the great things about it, right toward the end of his life, he was also heading a metal band.
So he was a real life spy, one of the coolest actors. All of the major stuff, and then also Lee, right? This is perfect.
Christopher Lee, right?
Yes,
Christopher Lee. Yeah,
I have a movie about Nachmanides, which Christopher Lee actually is on. It's about Nachmanides, the commentator that I've referenced several times. I'll send a link about.
Do you mean Nicodemus?
Nachmanides, not Nicomedes.
Nicodemus?
No. It's actually Rabbi Moshe ben Nachman in Hebrew, but because but it's Latinized to Nachmanides or Nachmanides.
Interesting.
Okay. All right. So I will see you all next week, and thank you very much.
And I believe, Arn, do you not have your you have your show tomorrow, right? The Book of Mormon one.
Yes.
All right. Well, you know what? For the chat, make sure before you go watch Arn's stream, you catch my stream where we're going to be covering more of Romans.
Ooh, Romans.
Yeah.
I'm gonna need a drink.
Yeah, I should have brought a drink. It was like I think it was in the first chapter where he goes off on this rant about gay people. I was like, holy fuck, that was that was more than I was expecting. Should have brought a drink.
It's funny when you do what you do, Lorence. When you start out with something, you're just having a laugh and just having a little bit of fun with something and then 3 years later, it's transcended into something. What actually we should be taking this serious.
Yeah, well, we've been doing the show for 5 years now.
It is serious, but also we probably, you know what, I come from the land of legal weed, and I'm going to take advantage of that when we're in Romans and many other places too, because it just, I have to laugh or I'll scream.
Yeah.
Understood.
There was sorry if we have the ability to do it. There was a question that I wanted to cover in the chat. So about why the Book of Enoch isn't accepted in this isn't mainstream religion, but yeah, it was also pointed out in the chat that it is accepted in the Ethiopian canon.
Yes.
Because the king was convinced that there was no way to understand the universe without having the astronomical book of Enoch. So he was like, there's no possible way we would know any of this. So here we go. Stick it in there. But they have they have a greater canon and a smaller canon. I did do a video, if anyone's interested, on the the canon called the canonization of First Enoch.
It is also part of the Matzhaf Kados. I hope I'm pronouncing it right, which is the scripture of the Beta Israel, which is also which is the Jewish Jewish Ethiopians. Yeah.
And but the reason it wasn't accepted into like Protestant canon or Catholic one was because it makes very clear that the Son of Man is Enoch, and they can't have that. No. Because the Son of Man is Jesus, not Enoch. So, yeah, that's why it's in there.
So much of Christian rationalization and thinking is, this is our theology. Our theology cannot be wrong. Therefore, this text doesn't say what it clearly says. It means this other thing, or this text isn't true because it doesn't confirm what we already believe to be true, even though we got our beliefs from the text. And no, there is no contradiction.
All right. Thank you all very much. We'll see you next week for Genesis 25. And
wait, there's one more comment. Someone, Nephilim Slade, said, if they ever made a movie about Aaron Ra, who would you like to cast as you? Lawrence could be young Aaron Ra.
Yes.
I will gladly take that role.
And starring his cat.
Absolutely.
All right. We're going to go. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.